Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of MC Fireside Chats. My name is Brian Searl with Insider Perks here, as always, with Cara Braeutigam from the Canadian Camping and RV Council. And today we are focusing on associations, the importance of them. A lot of you are members of these already, ARVC or CCRVC. Some of your state association leaders are here, Emily from Virginia, Lisa from Louisiana, and of course, Josh from BC. We hope to have Alex on here from Camping in Ontario. Maybe our lines got crossed, but she's going to join hopefully in a few minutes, but hopefully we'll hear from her as well. And really excited to just kind of discuss the benefits, things they're doing, what the future holds. I mean, this industry is really exploding. And so I think it's very important to keep those associations front of mind because they do a lot of lobbying and a lot of work and a lot of great things for the industry. So for those of you who are watching on Facebook, if you're on one of the Facebook pages, you can comment. We can bring you on. We'd love to invite you into the discussion here. And then we are also available as a podcast on Spotify, Google, all those kinds of things, Apple, and where you can listen to us later. Or it is available. All our past episodes are now available on mcfiresidechat.com. I don't even know if you saw that yet, Cara. I don't think I shared that with you, but I did that over the week.
Awesome. I'll check it out.
We want to let's go around. Maybe start. Lisa, you want to go first and just kind of tell us a little bit about not only yourself, but maybe the association and what you're excited about?
Sure. I'm Lisa Thibodaux. I'm the executive director for the Louisiana Association of RV Parks and Campgrounds, and I've been their executive director since 2011. It has been quite interesting, just like everybody else throughout the past year. Louisiana never did shut down, which is a plus for us, and camping is positive and great. We just had our association conference a couple of weeks ago, which turned out really well. We had quite a few new parks that came in from out of state in Mississippi that came to join us. We're planning on some regional meetings so we can get other information throughout other parks throughout the state that don't really know about us, even though we've been around for quite a while. We are affiliated with the National Association of RV Parks and Campgrounds. We rely on them a great deal for most of our advocacy efforts. We do connect one-on-one with them to help us as we need things done throughout the state. We also partner with our Louisiana Travel Association, where we also work on different things in different areas, whether it's festivals or events that's going on different parks that help us promote things that our members are doing.
Very cool. Well, thanks for joining us, Lisa. Who do you want to go next, Cara? You pick.
Wow. I'm so on the spot. Let's hear from Josh.
I didn't hear that. Sorry, is it me?
That's you, Josh, yes.
Oh, sorry. Yes. Hi, I'm Josh Penny. I'm the executive director of the British Columbia Lodging and Campgrounds Association. We were formed in 1944 as Auto Corp. We've been around quite a long time. We have about 400 members throughout the province of British Columbia. Well, what have we been working on? Well, we've been not shut down like Louisiana during the COVID. We've been pretty lucky. We've been declared an essential service, partly because the first wave of the COVID brought a lot of Canadian snowbirds back, and we had to house those Canadian snowbirds. We did have an impact on recreational travel last year that we weren't able to open to June the 1st. We aligned with BC Parks and Parks Canada and opening on that date. And we had a really strong camping season. Of course, it was just locals only, with the border being closed to the USA. The only Americans we saw were the ones that were en route to Alaska or from Alaska down back to mainland United States. No international travel. This year, we were expecting a bonanza year, but we've had the numbers spike just recently in British Columbia. So we've shut down on local travel only until May 25th, which is after our Victoria Day long weekend, just before the Memorial weekend. But we're still expecting to have a phenomenal season. Those campgrounds that are open year-round in the south of British Columbia have done really well. But a lot of Canadian snowbirds weren't able to go back across the border. We're the mildest place in Canada through the winter. And so we actually picked up a lot of business from Quebec east coming here to stay in winter on Vancouver Island and the Lower Mainland in the South Thompson. What have we been working on? Well, we're still working on our super camping guide, and we changed the format. We added the mapping thing. That'll be going out when the shows are coming back. We're currently working with a group of other organizations such as Provincial Parks and Parks Canada on the campus code, which we're hoping to be able to release soon, as we've had such an influx of brand new campers that we need to be able to tell them what is acceptable behavior. So we're looking at things like respecting others, respect wildlife, pet rules, don't litter, those types of things that we're going to overlay and try and make it funny and try and influence those people. So that's the biggest initiative that we're currently working on. From the point of view of our members during COVID, we obviously developed protocols for mask wearing, cleaning, 2 meters, those types of, and we had a campus code as well for the code of conduct that they had, and they were only allowed to have 6 people per site. So, and some of our campgrounds during COVID haven't opened any of their facilities. So I guess that's consistent with everything across the country and down south.
Thank you, Josh. David, you want to go from Marvin?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm David Dazzler. I'm the Vice President of Membership and Marketing with ARVC, the National Association based in Denver, Colorado. But we represent more than 3,000 privately owned RV parks, campgrounds, glamping businesses across North America. And we have, as Lisa mentioned a second ago, we have 24 partnering states that we work very closely with. And what we're doing right now and what we're planning on in 2021 is the list is very long, actually, but I'll hit some highlights.
Well, we've got an hour, David, so you can do some of it now. And
well, we'll come back later to it. On the legislative side, we're working with 15 states right now on inherent risk legislation, which basically protects all outdoor hospitality businesses from frivolous lawsuits from campers engaging in inherent risks of camping. So, for example, someone gets stung by a bee or trips on a route while hiking on a trail that's well maintained or burns themselves on a campfire, those kinds of things. Those are all, by the way, things that people have sued campground owners for, believe it or not. So that's a big thing that we're working on. Guest ejection legislation is also something big in a handful of states, including we just actually got some legislation along those lines passed in Indiana. Bill passed overwhelmingly, governor signed it, and the law goes into effect July 1 of this year. So that was a big win, and we're working on that in a number of other states as well. We have a consumer-facing website called GoCampingAmerica.com that is a great marketing tool for campgrounds, and that's has recently gotten a revamp and is getting more and more features throughout the year, including a plan your route tool. We've got a resource database that members use that's incredibly useful for campground owners. We're adding new benefits left and right. We're getting ready to announce some big benefits in the next, big discount benefits in the next month with Home Depot and Lowe's.
Will it bring lumber back down to reasonable prices with your discount?
Well, I can't promise that, but the cool thing about it is with the Home Depot discount specifically, it's customizable to campgrounds. So we're really excited about that piece. It's really going to be focused on what campgrounds purchase the most. So that's really going to, I think, be a big help. I'm not sure we can do anything about the lumber shortage right now. Let's see. Well, we're really excited. The other thing, we're really excited about meeting in person again in November at OHCE in Raleigh. We had to do the virtual show last year, and so we're looking forward to seeing everybody face to face in Raleigh in November.
Sure.
Definitely, absolutely. All right, Shane, you want to go?
Sure. Thanks, Brian. It's great to be on here again. We were looking forward to May 24, which is the Canadian unofficial start to the summer and camping season. Everybody usually gets pumped up about May 24 ever since, we're kids. But unfortunately, every province is starting to tighten down, and we're not sure whether we're going to be able to, start the camping season on time in some of the Canadian provinces this year. Unfortunately, we're monitoring things closely, but recent events, especially in Ontario, Nova Scotia, and New Brunswick, things are tightening down a little bit. So, campgrounds in that area and campers, are getting a little frustrated, to say the least. But I think as an association, we're torn between doing what's right health wise and the fact that everybody knows that the camping and outdoor experience is a safe one to do. So, do we advocate for government to to kind of change their policy for campers and then leave everybody else, or do we just kind of do what's best for the messaging? And I think that's a little bit in our minds, and so we're I think we're just being careful about our messaging. I think at this point, we want to see us get through this healthy and safely, and enjoy a good part of the summer versus maybe opening up too early and having our summer adversely affected. So we're optimistic that maybe June 1st, right across the country, we can get back going. And I think at this point, we're keeping our fingers crossed that that's going to happen. So
Awesome. Well, thank you, Shane. I think Emily, last certainly but not least, from Virginia.
Hi, all. My name is Emily Peck. I'm the Executive Director of the Virginia Campground Association. I started in 2016. We have just over 70 members now and hoping to add a few more here soon. We are in Virginia. We are kind of middle ground when it comes to COVID restrictions. We did get shut down for a little bit last year, but we bounced back. The campground industry did anyway, bounced back pretty quickly. And we're still doing great. Just as the industry is. Excuse me. We still have mask restrictions, social distancing restrictions, but the number of groupings, everything like that is starting to increase. We have another update coming out May 15th, and the governor has mentioned lifting all restrictions June 30th as long as everything goes well. But obviously, we'll see when we get there. Our annual meeting, we did not have one last year for the obvious reasons. Our vendors and members decided that a virtual one wasn't what they wanted, so we are waiting until September of this year to have our first meeting since 2019, so we're excited about that. It'll be September 27th to the 29th in Spotsylvania, so just south of DC. Let's see, we have our digital directory. So we decided to just go digital this year. We did print rat cards to send people to our website, but our digital directory is doing very well. And we like that we can update it at any time. So advertisers can update their ads through each issue. So the spring one's out right now. Summer edition's coming out in June. Members can update. We can add new parks in. The advertisers can change their ads each edition. So that's going over really well. Obviously, we're hoping to print for 22. But as for what we had to deal with this year, I think this was a good alternative, and people like it. So we're happy with that. We do work, we are 100% affiliated with ARVC. We work with the Virginia Restaurant, Lodging, and Travel Association very closely. ARVC and VRLTA help us with our advocacy efforts. And we also work with Virginia Tourism as well. Right now, VRLTA is working on a hospitality relief package. So while campgrounds are generally speaking doing very well for the hospitality industry, there are some parks that are still haven't bounced back as much as the others, and can use some relief money as well as us wanting to support our hotels, restaurants, wedding venues, stuff like that, things that keep people in the area and keep them coming to the campground. So we're helping and supporting with that the best that we can. Yeah, other than that, Virginia is doing really well. And we're hoping for a great camping season.
I think we all are definitely super excited about all that kind of stuff. So, all right, so let's try this tactic, right? I almost had my buddy Doug Parker on the show this morning because he bought a camper like during COVID, and I was going to have him pretend to be somebody who knew nothing about associations and ask you guys why you should join. So he's got terrible internet though in Idaho, and he can't connect. So I'm going to play that role. So because I think that's important, right? So let's say especially with this boom in the camping industry, right? Let's say I'm developing a new park. I've just bought the land, getting all the permitting, things like that in order. Like I really know nothing about the industry, and it's not directed to anybody. Whoever wants to take it can take it. Why am I, with my limited budget so far, right? I don't have any income yet because I'm not taking reservations. Why is an association on the top or near the top of my list of things to do? Open to anybody.
I'll jump in with that one and start with education for one. If you know nothing about how to get started, associations either at the state level or at the national level or provincial and national Canadian level can help educate you on how to get started, how to go through the process from start to finish. And then the other big reason to join would be the networking piece, because there are really thousands of people who have been there and done it before you have, who can help you learn from their mistakes as well.
I find the first thing that they ask as well is, can you help us with marketing? Because they need traffic, they need guests, they need to be preparing for that. So, I mean, I know you started the question right at the beginning, where probably do they need help with performer? Do they need help with zoning? Do they need help with building code? Those are other questions that tend to come in, and that's part of the education piece that David was talking about. We've got operators here that are on the board that can act as mentors to help people through that and access. So that's how we handle that. But it's mainly side. Sorry.
No, go ahead. I was just saying, and definitely by joining the National Association, why pay full price for so many things that you're going out to purchase on your own? Taking advantage of those benefits, whether it's for picnic tables or linen or whatever. I mean, why pay full price at a big box store when you can get all the discounts and save money in the long run?
Yeah, you just need a tractor and then you save for 20 years. Like, I feel like that pays for 20 years of ARVC, right? Doesn't it?
Right.
I think that's part of it, just connecting them with those suppliers that maybe they don't know about or don't have previous relationships with. The association typically partners with suppliers that have demonstrated great service and work with lots of other folks in the industry already. So they're familiar with campgrounds and what they need, and all those things are really valuable.
The list is longer than you can imagine. I mean, we've talked about a handful of them. Advocacy is another one. A lot of times when someone has a plot of land and they're wanting to put a campground on it, they run into difficulty with the local zoning board or another AHJ that's throwing a wrench into it. And the state association can help with that. The national association can help with that. The discount that Lisa mentioned, the discounts are a big reason to join an association. I mean, there's so many reasons, and the benefits totally outweigh the cost of joining. That's the thing that we say all the time, is that you spend a few $100s to join the association each year, and by doing any one of the things that we've mentioned, you repay that amount sometimes tenfold or more.
Yeah, there's tons of value for sure.
Yeah, I don't think there's any, we all know that, right? Sitting in this room, that there's a list of 200 plus things at every association that you can enjoy and that will pay for your membership and it really will help you be successful as a park. I think that there's, from a perspective of somebody who's coming into the industry is brand new, maybe they don't know those things. And so what I'm really trying to do is get them out here. So they've got a resource to watch and see like, oh, well, ARVC does this and this and this and this and this, and CCRVC does this and this and this, and Virginia does on top of what National does, Virginia and Louisiana do this. And so that's what I'm really trying to get at, is an informational resource of like, wow, there's no reason I'm not.
I think there's a broad spread of needs, right? So the best part about these associations is they really address various levels of need. I think certain operators are going to join for certain benefits, and others will join for different reasons. And all those things are impacted by things like location and how long your business has been in operation, and all of that. So.
Yeah.
I think, to get it down right to the ground level sort of thing, everybody's gone to a house party or some other gathering. And if you're standing by yourself and you see this huddle of people in the corner, they're all talking about stuff that, hey, did you see what the grocery store deals are? Or, yeah, I got a great deal at Home Depot. It's almost like that. You can stand there in the corner by yourself, or you can join the gathering and learn what's going on. Nobody wants to stand by themselves. Everybody wants to hear what they're missing, right?
What's your introvert, Shane?
Well, then you can still join the gathering, Brian, but you don't have to say anything.
Oh, okay. All right. Gotcha. You can just soak up the knowledge.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, and I think
a great way to put it.
And what he's saying is that the years I've been here, a lot of the operators operate in a vacuum. They don't even know the operator that's 2 kilometers down the road, 5 miles down the road, or 50 miles down the road. And yet they're in industry, and what we're trying to do is network. That's the networking thing. But also you have to tell them that it's an investment. We're going to give you an ROI, a return on your investment. You every year, it might be one phone call where we give you one piece of advice that saves you having to go to a lawyer. It could be a phone call where you get hold of us and we're able to save you X number of dollars on loads, for example, that someone's used here as well. I mean, we've got programs similar to that. But I think that's what you have to do. Or it could be you go to the event like Shane is saying, and instead of being that lone person, we pull you in and we make you part of that network group. Right. So I think those are all the, how do you convey those to people that are brand new, that are looking at every dollar and saying, is $300 a good investment? And that's really the key. It's a bit, I liken it to insurance. We're in the risk business. We're mitigating your risk, and we're giving you some advice. And so you should. But unlike the insurance business, we don't. You can make a claim more often, and we're not going to penalize you.
Right. I think I'll put my campground hat on for a moment and just say, from my own personal experience, I was joining the association really changed my perspective on my industry as a whole. Like Gus mentioned, I really was guilty of kind of operating in that vacuum, where I was so focused on my own kind of microcosm of the world that I didn't have that bird's eye level view of this industry and how integrated and intertwined all of us campgrounds are, as well as, RV dealers and manufacturers. We all have this significant reliance on each other. And it really kind of brought me out of that bubble and gave me the ability to see that this industry is so interrelated. We really, despite, maybe being competitors with the campground that's 15 miles down the road or whatever, we also really rely on each other. And certainly, and maybe this is region specific, but in my case, the more campsites that were open in my area, the more folks were out camping, and that's what I need, and all of our businesses needed. And that stuff really opened my eyes and changed my whole perspective of the industry that I was working on.
And we haven't even talked about time, right? Like, so few people put a value or a dollar amount on their time, that the research that's available on all of your websites and your phone and people calling in and talking to other people and networking, like this, how did I do this? Well, it's already been done. It's already been solved. So instead of you taking weeks and weeks and weeks to do this, you can all of a sudden take 24 hours and here's step 1 through 10 that you can get it done. And and knock it out. I mean, I know owners who there's one in Texas we work with, a KOA, that spent 4 years trying to get and I'm not saying that could have been sped up by an association. It was probably lobbying and politics and all that kind of stuff. But just knowing the path that was there before him probably would have helped him with a lot of stress, at least. So,
yeah, absolutely.
We use a phrase a lot at ARVC. We say stronger together a lot. And you'll hear us say that all the time. And it speaks to what we're talking about here from the standpoint, whether it's time or whether it's learning how to do something from other members of the association or state association working with a national association, whatever it is. It's a small industry, you know. Yep. It's important to work together and not against each other. We get further quicker when we do, and I think that's an advantage. If someone were to ring me up, and whether they're getting into the industry or whether they're a new campground owner or a long-time campground owner, doesn't matter. If they were to ask me what's the first thing I should do, 9 times out of 10. Depending on where they are in the country, I'm going to say join your state association. The only time I wouldn't is that if they don't have a state association in their state, and then we're going to start talking about how do we get one started. But if they have a state association, it starts at the local level, and in most cases, like we mentioned, there are partnerships there where if you join the state association, you automatically become a member of the national association, and you get the benefits of being members of both anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's excellent. I just feel like sometimes, like we talk to campground owners who are developers, and they don't even know sometimes that these associations even exist. Mm-hmm. And I've pointed them in those directions, like, hey, make sure you join ARVC, or make sure you join Louisiana or Virginia or whatever state you're in. And well, what is that? How do I get a hold of them? And so I CC emails and I introduce them to executive directors and all that kind of stuff. And they don't know it exists. And maybe that's because they come from an industry, whether it's real estate or construction or something, that doesn't have a strong associations like our industry does. But I don't know, is there a strategy that you guys can think of to help reach these new people better, or are we doing the best that we can?
I think it probably depends on the association, right? I mean, sure, that stuff is pretty manpower reliant and things like that. But
from a broad perspective,
yeah, I think, in my opinion, one of the top ways to get the word out to campground owners about associations is the members sharing that information with their peers. It's incredibly valuable to kind of have them testimonial their experiences with being members, and I think that's important for sure. But then things that we're already seeing, state and provincial associations that partner with their national counterparts. I think that stuff really helps to get the word out. But as far as ingenuity, I don't know, maybe things like streaming live shows on Facebook are the way, right? I don't know.
It's an interesting. We've gone heavily into marketing, and we have our website travelbritishcolumbia.com, and we have about 500,000 people. And we've also got lots of social media. We have another site, campingarvbc.com, that we do with a whole group, and then we have social media that flows out of that: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. And what I find is that the net that captures people's attention that don't know about you. And that's where you get your inquiries from, because they want to be listed. I mean, even the micro-sized campgrounds with one site, the people that are from that level up reach out and contact you, and they may reach out at various levels. But what we found by being involved with Go RVing as well as national CCRVC and Cara, is that the leads just keep coming from all directions. This is how most of them are finding us, because they're all searching something somewhere and playing in some field. So that's how we find that we can get hold of most of these people. But we just use it primarily for inventory generation. It takes, in my opinion, at least 5 to 6 times to somebody contacts when you're phoning them or emailing them or chatting with them to get them to make that buying decision. It's rare when it's one contact. It might be if they come to an event, they might do it right away, but it's really a slug to get them to join, because they're very cautious about spending their money and trying to see return on investment. We offer a 50% off cost for the first year for any member that joins, so that they can ramp up and see the ROI, and then they go to full benefit. We found that very successful in retention, because retention is the other side that we haven't really talked about. It's not it's easier to retain somebody than it is to actually get somebody on board. So once you've got them on board, you need to treat them with kid gloves and make them the king or queen, whichever way you want to look at it. That's how we try and treat them, and then get them to stay. Because our goal is not to have a one and gone. Our goal is to have them at least for a decade as members.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
No, you're right. I mean, it takes, like, we know that from marketing, right? It takes 7 touch points on average to get somebody to purchase something. And I think it's much easier if they're obviously at your conference, because then all the things we're talking about, the education and the time saving and the networking, are all happening in one place.
And so on just like it's really visible. Yeah, I think there's something valuable about that tangible connection with somebody where you can shake their hand, and it's not this, online thing. You can know that this person who's telling me they're going to support me and offer me all of these benefits and things for my business is standing in front of me, and there's some trust level there, which is, as a business owner, completely understand that for sure.
Look them in the eye, shake their hands. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all about building relationships. Whether if you're a campground owner and it's all about the experience for the camper. And if that experience is positive, that camper is going to come back year after year.
Yeah.
Same thing for us with members. When we build those relationships, we retain them and they become members for life, basically.
Absolutely.
Lisa and Emily and Josh can attest to all that. I'm guessing.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh.
Emily's got a cat. I've got my dog. We're regular as you here. So.
Well, I agree totally with.
I'm surprised it took him this long to show up.
That's awesome.
I didn't realize until COVID came around how important the in-person was. Just attending a few vendor trade shows online and stuff, it's just not the same thing. And actually seeing people, shaking their hands, saying hi, putting a face to the name, is just so important for this. So we're very excited for our meeting this year, and we're hoping to get a few new members in, and just like you guys were saying, so they can see the benefits, see how important it is, make some friends. And a lot of people, I know my parents own a campground, and when they first bought it, they joined ARVC, they joined BCA. This was 16 years ago now. They've been members ever since, and they have lifelong friends they've met through the association. So it's really important to have support from your fellow campground owners.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm curious, what does the day-to-day look like from the life of an executive director, right? Like we know this holistic, what associations present and all that kind of stuff, and then whoever wants to take it. But what does that look like? We know that you work hard, but what does the day-to-day look like?
I think it depends on which state you're in.
And what day of the week it is. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. There's times that I work till 2 a.m. and there's other times that it's in the summertime, because if you also work for a campground or work in the campground industry, at least when you get more to the seasonal jobs, you have more time in the winter than you do in the summer. So in the summertime, you end up working like 60-hour weeks to get everything covered, but it's definitely worth it.
Yeah, and you get phone calls not just from campground owners, people that are traveling find your phone number and call you and say, "Hey, I'm in Texas and I need to get to Louisiana. Where should I go?" So you end up helping them and giving them options on where to go, where to find the information, stuff like that. So it's not always a campground owner. It's also guests of the campgrounds. Right now in Louisiana, it's legislative time. So we're back and forth with the tourism bills, a sanitation code, always with the increase of the hourly wage. So you're constantly monitoring things. And then in the background, you're trying to recruit new members, find where they are, planning additional meetings, always updating your website, stuff like that. So I mean, there's always something you can do. You're never not busy. That's for sure.
I
The
think
list is
that's
always long.
Yeah, one of my favorite parts about it is just that the consistent, like, different things. It's not this monotonous routine thing every day. There's always kind of something different happening and a little bit of a challenge and things like that, which is so great. And then that consistently, even virtually, meeting new people, having meetings with new suppliers and new members and all of those things. That stuff is really great.
Yeah, I think a lot of my time is also spent on horizon gazing. You know, what's coming a year or 2 years and 5 years in the decade? What is the health? I mean, where are the trends and how can we go from that? So I spent a lot of time reading a lot of research because that's what people are looking to us for as leadership. I mean, I heard David talking about, I think it was inherent liability and gas ejection legislation. So obviously that's to do with behavior and some of it's, so those are sorts of things that they're addressing, but what's after that? I mean, and how do we make sure that we maintain it as a sustainable, healthy industry that we can repeat that guest experience time and time again, and we can play our part in reducing climate. How do we do that? Those are the things that we're talking. How do we help disabled people? So those are the things that I'm sort of involved in, and I work both with the Tourism Industry Association of British Columbia here and with the government here, and also with national to deal with that. But then there's the other side of it, which is the phone calls, the nice ones Lisa's talking about, you know, where you get a consumer, you know, and you get to actually help them. So, and you have to, I think a lot of my day is, I plan my day, and then a lot of it is interrupted, but those interruptions are important. Those are the important interactions. When I was actually planning was just what I was actually just planning.
Right, you definitely make that list with a pencil. Not me. Yeah.
And one of my most enjoyable things is actually going to shows because I actually get to see consumers.
Mm-hmm.
I actually run and operate a campground. I'm actually employed by the campground, so I'm a little bit different from that perspective. But when you go to the shows, you actually get to press skin with people who are real people who are asking you questions about where to stay, and that's really great to go to those.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally agree.
Sorry,
go ahead. I was going to actually ask Shane and David, like we talked about from state and provincial side, right? How does the strategy of a national organization then get shaped? How do you decide what you're working on, both from a association standpoint? Well, the whole thing's an association standpoint, but from I want to guide and lead my states who are members too into the future. How does that direction get shaped at the national level?
I'll go first, David. You know, I think it's a lot of communication with your members and hearing what they're saying. But also what I was going to say before, it's the industry partners and stakeholders, whether it's GORVing or it's RVDA of Canada or it's the Canadian RV Association or it's Tourism Industry Association of Canada or any of the provincial, stakeholders. Everybody. You know, those are the calls that, are good to stay in touch, hear what's going on there. And then when you're communicating with the members and the others, stakeholders, you can give them pretty up-to-date information on what's going on. So it's always good, to stay in touch with, everybody else that's involved in the industry, not to mention media too. We're getting tons of calls for media. I just did a call on Friday. You want to know, about the RV industry and everything. Had one last week. So, lots of things going on from outside parties as well, and those are really important to stay current with.
Lots of years.
I'll echo what Shane just said by again repeating "stronger together." That Go RVing, RVIA, RVDA, ARVC, CCRVC, the state associations, provincial associations, when we all communicate and work well together, we benefit the whole industry, all of our members, and people who aren't members, who then hopefully see that and say they want to become members. But strategy for looking into the future, Brian, I think also has to do with all of those entities working together too, because we all have ways of listening to our members, finding out what trends are from campers, from the consumer side.
Mm-hmm.
Every one of the entities that I just mentioned, along with corporates like KOA and LSI, and put out various trends reports that can be used to look at 5-10 years down the road. What do campgrounds need to do to become successful and to be successful a decade from now? I think that on a day-to-day basis, I think everyone on this call would agree that on a day-to-day basis, we get up with one thing in mind, which is how do we help our members be more successful? And that's what, to me anyway, that's what the strategy of the day is figuring out what the answer to that question is, whether it's how do we get them to be more successful tomorrow, or a year from now, or 5 years from now.
So talking about the future, what do you guys see? Like, what's coming in 5 or 10 years? Obviously, we just went through COVID and nobody knew that was coming. So short of, let's say that there's nothing unexpected, like crazy like that comes up. The industry is clearly being pushed forward into maybe, we saw on Woodall's, they were doing a article about electric vehicles, and is your campground ready for that? That was shared around quite a bit that I saw. I don't think a lot of parks are, but there's a lot of innovation coming into the industry. I think next week, Cara, we're doing management, and then the week after that, we're going to talk to Northgate about Camp Info, some of the things they're doing down there in Texas. So there's a lot of innovation coming in, a lot of modernization of campgrounds. There's more glamping, all kinds of things. So in your guys' mind, as leaders of these associations, what does that look like in 5-10 years, and how do you help people get there?
Campers are getting bigger to start with. I know the tent campers are coming out and people are starting to tent camp again. But the people who are already in the camping industry, I've noticed, are upgrading their campers.
Okay.
I know that even my parents are leaving tomorrow to upgrade their 40-footer to a 45-footer. The campers that are coming into our place are huge. It seems to be a big disparity. Like, you have the 40-footers, and then you have a lot of the little camper vans, but we have to be able, as an industry, to support those giant campers. The sites are wide enough for the triple slides, the bump outs on the back, the toy haulers that turn into decks in every direction. And while we knew it was coming, they're becoming more popular. So I think just keeping that in mind when you think, oh, should I re-landscape this? Should I think about making these back-ends into pull-throughs? Or how do I make my roads easier for these campers to get through? Because the little ones aren't the issue. It's when you do upgrade to that 40-footer, that 45-footer, it limits where you can go. So if your campground is set up to hold every camper that's out there on the market, you'll get as many guests as are possibly available.
Right. That's
Variety
kind of
is another.
too. Yeah.
Go ahead, Lisa.
I was just saying, some of the older parks will definitely have to start upgrading, maybe combining 2 of their spots to become one. It's always been a challenge with internet, especially with majority of children in school having to do online classes and people working online. So between the renovation of the spaces, the upgrades of the electrical, the upgrades of all the Wi-Fi, there's lots of updates that some of our older parks definitely need to do to be able to stay competitive with all the new parks that are coming.
Variety is something else that I think campgrounds need to look at for growth in the future as well, because 3/4 of camping households in the United States aren't RVing. They're showing up in their car and they're looking for a park model or a yurt or a safari tent or something like that. And that's, I think we're going to see an explosion of that as well on the glamping side of things.
I think you're right on there, David. I mean, and that offers a great opportunity of revenue for campground operators because they can take their least profitable sites, which are usually tent sites and they're small ones, and they can put on a glamping unit on there, and then suddenly they're making $200 a night instead of occasionally making $20 to $30 to $50 depending where they are. So I think, and our guys are really, because we're land poor up here. There's tons of land, but we're mountainous, so really they're land poor. Exactly as Lisa was talking, would you want to collapse two sites into one and halve your revenue? No, you're probably better off putting a glamping unit on some of those and increasing your revenue yield. So I think we're going to see more of that, way more of that, and exactly as you said. And it's because of the urban. I mean, I live in Vancouver. People are in high rises. They don't have the space to store any. So I think the other big boom we're going to see is the peer-to-peer. We're going to see people in rural areas that are going to be renting their trailers and getting yield from those trailers, which is where the sales are going to come, and then all the servicing that's going to be required for those. We're going to see RV dealers probably change from being sales and maintenance to being storage and peer-to-peer hubs that actually house them and service them and putting them out. I think we're seeing a tremendous. I mean, I think Camping World is an example of that when they do their new announce their new rental fleet. I mean, they're probably going to be fairly close to that peer-to-peer model, that I'm talking about. So that's where I think we're going to see major change, which then means that for someone who's in a city, they can fly to Prince George, or they can fly to LA, and they can pick up and they can go drive directly to where they want to go. So now we're starting to see a new clientele that used to be hotel based, and because of pandemic, it's going to be and fears of safety and whatever, it's going to be driven to an outdoors based approach, but low level accommodation instead of vertical accommodation with hotels.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. I think too, we're seeing interesting things around things like dynamic pricing and using software and technology to really impact, things like the bottom line and how campers are, how much campers are willing to pay to stay. I mean, I'm seeing lots of parks talk about folks doing long-term stays at daily rates and things like that. It's things that, I mean, it's been a few years since I owned a campground, but I would never have thought that happening in my park. So, I think that stuff is only going to continue to impact this industry in the next several years.
Yeah. I definitely think we're going to move much more towards online booking, less to the personal touch. And campground, that's the biggest thing that traditional campground operators have got to do. I mean, you don't necessarily know who's coming into your park. You can't control it as much. And that's, I guess, why you're looking at some of those legislative changes so you can actually deal with some of those behaviors. That's why we're putting in our campus code to try and get some acceptable behavior across. But I see that as a big issue. I mean, it's tough. I mean, to not know who's coming other than the size of their rig and who they are, and they're not a repeat guest, and you don't know their demeanor and do they know your rules. And I think we're going to see a big push towards probably having pre-signed waivers as well, more, especially here in Canada. I don't know if we'll see it in the United States, but I certainly think that we're going to have to let people know they're taking the risk as well as us, and we're not taking all that risk. So I think we're going to see those changes. I can't tell you where Wi-Fi is going other than it's going to be faster, and you're going to have more people working there, and maybe we'll have even more devices. Who knows?
You might have Starlink here in a couple of years, so it's already coming out.
What are campgrounds going to look like in 5-10 years when 10 or 25% of the vehicles are electric?
What are they going to look like in 5 or 10 years when they're self-driving too, and electric?
I think it's an interesting dynamic. I do believe campgrounds are well positioned for that transition, considering how much electrical infrastructure and those kinds of things they already have on property typically. But it's going to be interesting to see what those changes do to this industry for sure. I think
it's
probably good things, but
it's a new model for sure. I mean, the electric RV pulls into your unit, into your space. They are going to be pulling a heck of a lot more electricity than they would be normally. Who's going to pay for that? Is it going to, the camper is going to see a higher rate, I would assume, from campground owner.
Yeah, they're saving on gas, but they're going to pay on hydro. I mean, that's really what it amounts to. I mean, at some point in time, if governments remove their dependency on oil as a way of leveraging a lot of funds, they're going to have to leverage those funds somewhere else. So where are they going to leverage them? And is that through electrical prices? Is that through other points? I mean, so I think that we've got those debates coming. They're not ready right now, but they're coming. I mean, as to the RVs, I think we're going to move much more to a static model, where similar to what they have in Europe, whereby people just drive up and they're already, the park models are there. I think that's exactly where we're probably going to go in the short term.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's no question that associations are hands down the most valuable resource you can probably do in the beginning when you're starting a campground, developing, or even if you owned a campground and you're coming into it, taking it over, whatever, right? I think there's no question about that. So we've talked about the proactive, and we only got a couple minutes left here, but we talked about the proactive, right? There's an owner that reaches out to Louisiana or Virginia or BC or to ARVC or CCRVC or whoever it is, right? And they're saying, I need help with this. How can I do this? Or how can I get permits? Or how can I do whatever? Is there a strategy in place from an association to push that information out? Because let's be honest, there are a few campground owners, small business owners in general, right? But we're talking about campgrounds. There are a few campgrounds who are resistant to change. And so how do I, knowing that this is the future, how do I convince my campground owners to merge those two sites together to make one big site to make more money? How do I convince them to change a tent site to a glamping site? How do I do that with a mindset of this has always worked and my business isn't suffering?
I don't think you do, Brian. I think it's important to remember that our members own and operate their own businesses and get to make those choices for themselves. And the strong will succeed and do it well and reap the benefits of that. And those that prefer to maybe keep things the same, I think that's maybe my perspective is skewed because I used to be a campground operator, but I think it's very, very important that it isn't about convincing anybody to change their business model or strategizing to alter the way they work every day. I think it needs to be about giving them the information, keeping them informed, talking about things like where are things going, when are the electric RVs coming, all of those things, sharing that information with them so that they can make the best choice both for their business and for themselves, but also for their guests. And I think for the industry as a whole, all those things impact the industry and where it can go. And not all operators are going to be maybe in a location or have the type of campground that's going to work for all of the maybe best case scenarios. Their businesses are incredibly unique. I was talking about this we're working on a potential insurance partnership. I was talking about this with the insurance provider that we're working with. Normally, an insurance company can write a group program for a type of businesses, and it applies to everybody. But in the case of campgrounds, that doesn't fit. They're all incredibly unique. They have tons of different facets that impact their daily operations and what they can and can't do. And I think outside of giving them the information and communicating and networking and sharing everything possible with them, you can't convince them to alter their business model. That's their choice to make.
Okay.
Cara, if I could do it without disrupting my camera, I would give you a standing ovation right now. I couldn't agree more with what you just said. I mean, that's the role of the association, right? We have to give them the tools, and they make their decision.
Yes.
Regardless of what level we're at, it's their business, and we just have to give them the tools and the news and the advocacy support and everything else that they can pick and choose what they want to use. And just like in any industry, you're always going to have early adopters who are going to go out and put a bunch of electric charging stations at their campground, for instance. But then you're going to have the campground who still takes online reservation or still takes reservations with a pad and paper.
Yeah.
You know,
and frankly,
it works for them.
The consumer will speak. The campground will owner will make the choices that translate to business success for them. And so in my opinion, it's not the association's position to convince campground owners to work in a certain way. The consumer will do that work with their dollars. They will choose which campgrounds they want to support and go to based on amenities and all kinds of variables that individual consumers prefer. You know, I've said this before. There are campgrounds out there who take reservations with pencil and paper, and there are campers who support that and are happy to do so. And so that works for them. Maybe that won't always be the case, and that campground may be forced by the transition of campers spending their money elsewhere to make those choices for themselves. And then they can come to the association and we'll give them all the tools to take a great software program.
Exactly.
Well, I've been around a long time, so I know that change is constant. I mean, even those that put themselves in a time capsule, eventually they sell or their kids take over. And there's a different direction, and that's when they come to the association wanting some help, you know. So I think that's the important thing. We're going to have time capsules, and we're going to have people. A lot of people are in it for lifestyle.
Yeah.
Other people are in it to make money. I think the biggest change we've seen is the corporates coming into Canada. You know, Parkbridge and Pathfinder. We don't have as many as they in the States, but I think that's stabilized, and we're not losing as many campgrounds. So I think that's a big trend that we need to keep an eye on. So I'm not sure how they're going to view memberships in associations like ours in the long run, especially when they get 50, 60, 70 campgrounds across the country. Do they need to belong? And those are the ones that are driving and some of the trends and at the top level, but they're also driving some of the legislative changes and some of the behavior changes that we're seeing as well. So it'll be interesting to see. And when you're a ma and pa, do you actually relate to somebody who operates that many? I mean, we've got the whole spectrum right up from the hobbyist to the corporates.
All right, well, we got a couple minutes left here. Let's just do a little round robin around the room. What are you most excited about for 2021, 2022? Open-ended, whatever you want to talk about. What are you most excited about?
Getting rid of COVID.
Yeah. Seeing people face to face.
There you go.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
definitely reconnecting with members in person. Sitting down with those boards and getting that important work done that's tough to do on a Zoom call, for sure.
And seeing the Maple Leafs win the Stanley Cup.
Wait,
That's a top of my list.
Shane, did you say the Avalanche? Is that what you said?
Bad connection, David.
yeah.
All right, well, anything last minute anybody else would like to add before we wrap this up?
I would just like to say thank you, Brian, and everybody else on the call for participating today. And if there's anyone in Louisiana that needs some information, you can definitely go to my website, which is campinglouisiana.com. And all my contact info is there, and I look forward to hearing from you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's important to just mention, if anybody wants to reach out, they can touch base with Brian or myself, and we can connect you with whoever the pertinent individuals in your area are. It's incredibly valuable, I think, to even just start the dialogue if you haven't already with your association.
Right.
Yeah, thanks, Brian and Cara, for doing this. I would also like to thank Lisa and Emily, two of our partnering state execs who work their tails off.
Mm-hmm.
You two are the ones on this call, but there are 24 others who aren't on this call who work their tails off as well. So, again, stronger together. Thanks, guys.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
See you in November.
Well said.
All right, thank you guys.
See you in
Take care.
November.
Thanks.
Thanks
Bye-bye.
so much.
Thank you. Stay
Thanks
well.
for